The frozen shadows of war. The cold night was deadly. Snow fell like sharp needles on the broken battlefield of Kiro 7, a moon far away from Earth. Fires still burned where machines had died. Bodies both alien and human were frozen in their final positions. Nothing moved. Nothing lived except him. Private Logan Reyes walked slowly through the wreckage, rifle low, eyes alert. His breath came out in white clouds. His boots crunched over snow and metal shards. He was the last of his unit still moving. The war had ended just 3 days ago. But the silence felt worse than battle. Logan had seen too many fights. Too much. Death. Now his orders were simple. Sweep the area, find survivors if any, and report. He didn't expect to find anyone. Then he heard it. A sound soft, almost like a whimper. Like someone crying. Logan paused. He lifted his rifle, aiming toward a pile of burnt crates. The sound came again, weak and shaky. He moved closer, slow and careful. Something was hiding behind the crates. Logan crouched. What he saw made him freeze. It was a child. An alien child. She looked no older than 8 or 9, but her skin was light blue and thin like glass. Her big, glowing eyes stared at him with fear. Her clothes were torn, barely covering her small body. She was shaking badly, hugging her knees to her chest. She didn't speak. She didn't run. She just stared. Logan didn't move for a moment. His fingers tightened around his rifle. His brain screamed, enemy. She could be a trap. Maybe her people left her here as bait. But then she coughed. A horrible sound. And he saw her lips turning purple from the cold. She was dying. Logan looked around. The snow was getting thicker. He had a small camp set up just a few meters away. A tent, a sleeping bag, emergency rations. Enough for 1 man. He looked back at the girl. She was trying to crawl deeper behind the crate, as if expecting to be shot. He slowly lowered his rifle. It's okay, he said, though he knew she didn't understand. He removed his helmet and dropped it in the snow to show he meant no harm. She didn't move. Logan took off his backpack and pulled out his military sleeping bag. It was made for freezing temperatures, lined with heat-absorbing fabric, built to keep a soldier alive in the worst conditions. He unzipped it and walked forward. Slowly, hands up. The girl's eyes widened. She tried to scoot back but was too weak to move much. Logan crouched and gently placed the sleeping bag next to her. Here, he whispered. Take it. You'll freeze. The alien girl looked at the bag, confused. So he did the unthinkable. He reached out, picked her up. She was as light as a feather, and carefully slid her inside the sleeping bag. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She just breathed. For the first time in who knows how long. She stopped shaking. Logan wrapped her up tightly and zipped it shut. Her eyes closed. He stared at her for a long moment, then sat down beside her. The snow fell quietly now. The wind howled in the distance. But inside that sleeping bag, the girl was safe. He whispered, Guess you're with me now, huh? She didn't answer, but a tiny smile formed on her lips. And in that moment, Logan Reyes, just a tired human soldier, did something no general, no leader, no king had managed to do in the entire war. He gave the enemy warmth, not bullets, not orders, not fear. Just warmth. And that single act would echo across galaxies. Morning came slow on Kiro 7. The snowstorm had passed, but everything was still white and frozen. The sun was weak, just a dull glow behind thick gray clouds. Logan Reyes stood outside his small tent, rubbing his hands for warmth. He hadn't slept. His eyes kept going back to the sleeping bag inside. The alien girl was still asleep. Wrapped like a cocoon, she hadn't moved much all night. But at least she wasn't shivering anymore. Logan sighed. What now? He whispered. He knew the rules. All non-human survivors had to be reported. The military would send a drone. Maybe take her in, maybe not. He didn't trust their version of care. His communicator buzzed. "Private Reyes, report status," came the cold voice of his superior. He stared at the tent. "Area secure," Logan replied. No signs of life. A lie. He turned off the comm and went back inside. The girl was awake now. Her big eyes blinked. Slowly, she looked at him with confusion and caution. Her thin hands clutched the edge of the sleeping bag. Logan crouched. "Hey, you okay?" She didn't answer, but he noticed her breathing was better now. Her face wasn't as pale. He pointed. To himself, Logan. Then slowly he pointed at her. "You?" She just stared. "Okay," he said. "We'll work on that." He offered her a ration bar. She sniffed it first, then took a small bite. Her hands were shaking, not from cold this time, but from hunger. She hadn't eaten in days. He smiled. "You're tougher than you look." Suddenly, the tent flap opened. 2 soldiers stood there, rifles ready. Behind them, a hovering drone recorded everything. "Step away from the unknown," one of them ordered. "She's alien." "You should have reported immediately." Logan stood between them and the girl. "She's a child. She's not a threat." "That's not your call. Command will take her." The girl whimpered and grabbed Logan's jacket tightly. She buried her face into his side, refusing to let go. Logan didn't move. "She's freezing. She needs help." "She's enemy species," the other soldier said. "Class 7. Dangerous. Don't be stupid. She's just a kid." The drone beeped as it scanned her. No known identification. Possibly orphaned during retreat. Condition: malnourished. Status: low priority. Low priority. Logan clenched his jaw. "HQ says bring her in or leave her," the soldier said. "No exceptions." The girl held him tighter. Her body was so light it felt like nothing. Logan looked down at her, then back at the soldiers. "I'm keeping her," he said quietly. They stared at him like he'd gone mad. "You'll be marked as non-compliant," one warned. "That's a strike on your record." Logan didn't care. "She stays with me. I'll protect her." The drone hovered for a few more seconds, recording everything, then flew away. The soldiers looked at each other, shrugged, and left without a word. Logan sat back down, heart still pounding. The girl looked up at him, her eyes full of something he didn't expect. "Trust. You're really stuck with me now," he muttered. Over the next few days, she followed him everywhere. Logan gave her a nickname, Nova, because her eyes sparkled like stars when she smiled. And she was smiling more often now. Even though she never spoke, Nova was smart. She watched everything he did, how he boiled water, how he aimed his rifle, how he read maps. She even mimicked him when he cleaned his boots. But something strange happened on the 5th day. Nova tugged on his arm and pointed at the snow. She bent down and drew something with her finger. A strange circle with lines through it, like a symbol. "What's this?" Logan asked. She pointed ahead. "Danger?" She nodded. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" She nodded again, this time faster. Logan checked his scanner. Nothing showed up. But 10 minutes later, a landmine exploded in the exact spot Nova had warned about. Logan pulled her into cover and stared at her. "How did you know?" She just stared at the smoke cloud in the distance, her face calm. After that, Logan listened to her every time she pointed. Nova had instincts no machine could match. One night, as Logan sat writing a report he'd never send, he looked at Nova, curled up beside him in the sleeping bag. She had no family, no language, no name except the one he gave her. But in just a few days, she'd become more than just a rescued alien. She had become his responsibility, his shadow, his hope, and maybe, just maybe, the war hadn't taken everything from him after all. Snow drifted slowly over the wreckage, but Logan no longer saw it as just cold or death. Ever since Nova arrived, the world around him had started to feel alive again, Like the frost itself was breathing. It had been 2 weeks since he first found her. She still hadn't spoken a single word, but her actions, they screamed louder than voices. Logan was building a small perimeter outside an abandoned outpost, marking the safe zones. Nova stayed near the wall, tracing strange symbols. In the snow again, it had become her habit. Wherever they stopped, she would draw. Circles, lines, curves, patterns that didn't make sense to him. He crouched beside her and pointed. "What is this? A warning?" She glanced at him and nodded. "You always know," he whispered. "Before something bad happens." 3 days ago, she drew a triangle with a mark at the tip. Hours later, a sniper shot came from that direction. He would have been dead if she hadn't grabbed his shoulder and pulled him to the ground. Seconds before it fired, Logan didn't understand. How she knew? Was it instinct? Experience? Some kind of ability? Or something else? That night, as the two huddled in the outpost under a damaged roof, Logan tried again. He pulled out an old data tablet and showed her images of alien scripts. Anything look familiar? Nova leaned forward, her glowing eyes scanning the screen. Then, without a word, she tapped one of the symbols. Logan zoomed in. "This one?" She tapped it again. The symbol was part of a lost language, one humans never cracked. Some believed it belonged to an ancient race wiped out centuries ago in the First Galactic War, but that was just a myth. "Wasn't it?" "Nova," he said slowly. "Where did you come from?" She didn't answer. She just curled up beside him and closed her eyes. The next morning, a patrol drone buzzed past them in the sky. Logan froze and pulled Nova under a broken beam. The drone passed without scanning, but Logan knew they were getting closer. His squad was searching for him now. They must have labeled him a deserter. He didn't care. He had Nova, still. He needed help. Answers. He remembered someone, an old xenolinguist named Dr. Halvik, stationed at Research Camp 9, just 50 miles south. If anyone could read Nova's symbols, it would be him, but it was a dangerous trip. Blizzards, collapsed tunnels, and patrol units filled the region. Logan didn't tell Nova the risk. He just said, "We're going to meet a smart old man. He might know who you are." Nova tilted her head and gave a small nod. On the way to Camp 9, they stayed in a collapsed tunnel overnight. Logan lit a heat rod while Nova, as always, drew in the frost on the tunnel wall. But this time, the symbols were different. They weren't warnings. They looked like memories. He saw the shape of a tall building, a planet with 3 moons, a figure tall, like Nova, but with a glowing mark on the forehead. Nova paused, then slowly placed her small hand on the figure in the drawing. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Logan's throat tightened. "That's your family?" She didn't move. Then she wiped away the drawing, like she couldn't bear to look anymore. When they finally reached Camp 9, it was half buried in snow. Most of the buildings were destroyed, but the main science dome still had power. Logan knocked twice on the steel hatch. A shaky voice answered. "Who's there?" "Reyes, private. I need help." After a pause, the door opened and Dr. Halvik appeared. A thin, gray-bearded man with tired eyes and a heavy coat. "What the hell are you doing here?" the doctor asked, looking at the child behind Logan. "Is that?" "She's not dangerous," Logan said quickly. "She's special." Halvik narrowed his eyes. "Bring her in." Inside the lab, Nova stood near the glowing equipment, staring at the walls. Her eyes locked onto an old dusty banner and emblem. With a strange symbol. She pointed. Halvik followed her finger and froze. "That symbol," he whispered. "No one's seen that in over a century." "What is it?" Logan asked. Halvik walked over to a dusty drawer and pulled out a worn data crystal. He loaded it into the console. The screen lit up. A projection appeared, showing the same symbols Nova always drew. "This language," Halvik said, "belonged to the Valari, a race that vanished after the first collapse. We thought they were extinct, not a single one left. Nova stepped forward and touched the screen. The console flickered. For a second, every system lit up bright and alive. Logan's eyes widened. What just happened? Halvik stared at Nova, his voice shaking. She's not just Valari. She's connected to their technology. Maybe even built to protect it. Nova looked at them both. And for the first time ever, she whispered something, just one word: home. The air outside Camp 9 was colder than ever, but Logan's blood ran even colder when Dr. Halvik gave him the news. There's a bounty on her, the old man whispered, watching the door nervously. You're Nova. She triggered a global signal when she touched my console. A signal only Valari tech can activate. Logan stared at him. So what does that mean? Halvik's voice dropped. It means the old empires, the ones who feared. The Valari know she's alive now, and they'll come for her. Not to help, to erase. Outside, the snow had started falling again. Nova sat silently by the fire, drawing in the dust of the floor, unaware of the danger closing in. Logan's mind raced. She wasn't just a child anymore. She was a living key to something ancient, something powerful. And people would kill to keep that secret buried. We need to leave, Logan said. Now. Halvik nodded. Take the south tunnel. I'll erase the logs. I never saw you. Why? Are you helping us? The old man looked at Nova and smiled softly. Because once, I had a daughter too. And no one came for her. They left Camp 9 that night, hidden beneath frost and shadow. Logan carried Nova on his back through the narrow tunnel, their footprints disappearing behind them. Wind howled through the cracks, sharp like knives. At sunrise, they reached the open plains of the frost fields, a deadly stretch of snow dunes, ice lakes, and broken metal skeletons from forgotten wars. No cover. No shelter. Just white emptiness for miles. Logan adjusted his rifle and checked the signal jammer strapped to his chest. If they track us here, we won't have anywhere to hide. Nova clung to his hand, quiet and watchful. They began walking. Hours passed. The wind bit their faces. Logan's legs ached, but he kept moving. Nova didn't complain once. She simply walked beside him, as if her little body held a fire the cold couldn't touch. Suddenly, Logan stopped. A low, humming sound buzzed through the air. Drones. He pushed Nova down behind a mound of broken scrap metal. Above them, 3 black machines flew in formation, scanning the snow. Logan held his breath, but Nova didn't panic. She pulled out a small metal shard she'd taken from Halvik's lab, shaped like a crystal. She pressed it against the ground. The snow shimmered around them and turned invisible. Logan blinked. What the? They were hidden. The drones passed over without noticing. Nova exhaled softly, then released the crystal. The illusion faded. Logan stared at her. You've had that kind of tech this whole time? She gave a tiny smile, like she'd just shown him a magic trick. By nightfall, they reached the ruins of a downed space freighter. Logan made camp inside a broken cargo bay. He set up a heater, checked for signs of life, then turned to Nova. She was tracing her fingers along the freighter walls, her eyes glowing faintly. What is it? Logan asked. Nova pointed to a dark corner, then mimicked a circle with her hands. A hatch? He followed her lead and pried open the panel. Behind it was a locked crate. He broke the seal. Inside was a small orb humming softly with blue light. It floated toward Nova and merged with her chest. Logan jumped. Nova, but she didn't scream. Instead, her entire body shimmered with light. Her eyes lit up brighter than before, and images appeared in the air. Memories, cities in the clouds, giant ships that flew without fuel, tall, proud Valari families. And then destruction, explosions, collapse. Nova fell to her knees. Logan caught her. Hey, it's okay. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. She remembered it all. The next morning, Logan heard the sound he feared most: heavy engines in the sky. Drops, HIPS. The bounty hunters had found them. He grabbed Nova, grabbed the bag, and ran. Blaster fire rained. Down behind them, ice cracked underfoot. Drones swept low, scanning and screaming. They ran through an old trench line, once used in a war nobody remembered. Logan fired behind him blindly, hitting one drone. The others kept coming. Suddenly, Nova stopped running. She raised her hand. The orb in her chest pulsed. And with a deep, powerful sound boom, a wave of blue energy exploded from her. The drones dropped from the sky like flies. The snow calmed. The noise stopped. Logan stood in awe. Nova had released something ancient. "Nova," he whispered. "What? What are you?" She looked at him and finally said, in a quiet, broken voice, "Last light." They kept running. They had to. But Logan knew now, she wasn't just being hunted for who she was. She was being hunted for what she could awaken. And the frost fields. They were only the beginning. The mountains beyond the frost fields were taller than Logan expected. Sharp, black peaks tore through the snow like broken knives, and icy winds screamed through the passes. There were no maps here, no signals, and no safe paths. Logan didn't care. He had one mission now: keep Nova alive. They camped inside a cracked cave opening, just before the sun dipped behind the ice cliffs. Logan set up his last heat rod and shared the last of their water. His hands shook as he stirred powdered soup in a rusted pot. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. Nova sat nearby, wrapped in the old military sleeping bag, now worn and torn, but still her shield from the world. She was silent, as always, but her eyes weren't just tired. They were glowing again. Faint blue light pulsed under her skin, especially near her neck and arms. It wasn't just cold light. It looked alive. "Nova," Logan said softly, "is something wrong?" She looked down, hiding her hands in the sleeping bag. But Logan had already seen the faint lines like veins of light growing beneath her skin. Something inside her was changing. That night, Nova cried in her sleep. Logan sat next to her, one hand on the rifle, the other on her shoulder. She whispered things he didn't understand, words from her lost language. Her body trembled, not from cold, but from something deeper, a pressure, a heat rising inside. Then, suddenly, she gasped and her skin lit up like fire under ice. Flames danced along her arms, glowing blue, but they didn't burn. Instead, the air in the cave became warmer. The frost on the walls melted. The temperature rose by 20 degrees in seconds. Logan stepped back, stunned. Nova sat up, confused. Her breath was visible, but the cold was gone. You just did that," Logan whispered. "You made heat." She looked at her hands, shocked. Her palms still glowed, but the fire slowly faded. She wasn't in pain. No burns, no damage. "It's not just energy," he said. "You're controlling it." Nova didn't deny it. She didn't know how. But it was inside her now, awakened by fear, by survival, or maybe even by that floating orb back in the freighter. Logan grabbed his tablet and made a note. "Nova generates heat, controlled energy. Possibly Valari bio ability. Could be defensive, could be something more." The next morning, snow covered the cave entrance. Logan carefully moved it aside, only to see something terrifying on the frozen slope outside. "Call on footprints. Fresh ones. Not theirs. Boots. Heavy. Hunters." He turned to Nova. "We've been followed." She didn't blink. She simply pulled the sleeping bag tighter around her and stood beside him. Logan packed quickly, but there was nowhere to go except up. So they climbed. The cliffs were dangerous. Ice broke under their boots, and one wrong step meant falling into black nothingness. Logan pulled Nova up rock by rock, but his hands were bloody and frozen. Suddenly, behind them, a blaster fired. Crack. The shot hit the cliff wall just inches. From Logan's head. Hunters. Two figures in dark armor were approaching from below, climbing faster than should be possible. Their eyes were covered with red visors, and their weapons were silent but deadly. Logan pulled Nova higher. Faster. They reached a narrow ledge. No more climbing. Nowhere else to go. The hunters reached the slope. Hand over the asset, one of them ordered. You are a deserter. She is classified. Logan aimed his rifle. She's a child. She is a weapon, the other said coldly. Nova stepped forward. Her hands were glowing again. The hunters raised their weapons. Then Nova whispered, "No." More. She opened her palms, and the air exploded. A wave of blue fire burst from her chest, rushing like wind through the narrow ledge. It didn't burn Logan, but the hunters screamed as their visors shattered, and their suits froze from inside. The fire wasn't heat alone. It was controlled chaos. Temperature reversed. Pressure shifted. They fell. Gone. Logan fell to one knee, panting. Nova's light faded again, and she collapsed into his arms. He held her tightly. You saved us, you. She was burning hot yet calm. Her head rested on his shoulder. Then she looked up at him with tired eyes and asked quietly, Am I still just a child? Logan's heart twisted. Yes, he said. But one the stars will remember. Later, in the silence of the high cliffs, Logan built a fire using scraps of his own gear. He sat beside Nova, who now slept peacefully again. He looked at the flames, then at her hands. She had fire inside her, fire that could save lives or destroy armies. And now the world would come chasing it, but Logan would not run. He would fight, because the girl he gave a sleeping bag to in the cold was now the warmth he never knew he needed. The stars looked close from the high cliffs. Logan sat near the edge, watching the sky turn purple as the sun dipped behind the ice horizon. Nova lay inside the old military sleeping bag, resting against a slab of smooth stone, her body finally still after days of running and fire. Her breath was calm now. No more shaking, no more tears, but Logan couldn't sleep. He looked at the sleeping bag, the same one he had handed her that night in the snow, just to stop her from freezing. He never imagined it would become more than a simple act of kindness. But lately, the bag had begun to change. That morning, he'd noticed something odd. The fabric shimmered faintly in the dark, like it was reacting to Nova's skin. The inner lining had hardened in some places, forming strange, soft ridges. And near the base, where her hands usually rested, glowing threads had appeared, thin blue veins of energy, pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a sleeping bag anymore. Logan leaned forward and carefully pulled back one flap of the fabric. A small, sharp flash burst out like static. He jumped. Nova stirred but didn't wake. He opened the bag fully, and his breath caught. Inside the lining, hidden deep in the fibers, something was growing. A crystal-like formation, small, warm to the touch. It pulsed softly with the same blue glow that now lived inside Nova. He reached for his tablet and scanned it. Unknown material. Not synthetic, not fully organic. Hybrid Villari energy signature detected. What are you? Logan whispered. He looked at Nova. She looked peaceful, unaware that something inside the very cloth that had saved her was evolving with her. Later, when she woke, Nova saw him staring at the bag. She crawled over and gently touched the inner lining. Her eyes glowed for a second, and the fabric responded. A holographic image projected upward. It showed her, a younger Nova, surrounded by tall Villari adults. She laughed, held someone's hand, and played under silver trees. Then came fire, then falling stars. Then silence. And then a soldier, human, wrapping her in warmth. Logan watched the memory in awe. That's me? Nova nodded slowly. You remember now? She looked at him, then at the sleeping bag. Her tiny voice said, It kept me alive, and it listened. Logan blinked. Listened? Nova pointed to the crystal growing inside. It remembers. They didn't have long to talk. Before noon, a shadow passed over the cliffs. A sleek aircraft descended quietly. Its design old, but deadly Valari architecture. But repainted in human black. It didn't belong to the military. It belonged to someone. Worse, a woman stepped out, tall, silver-haired, and dressed in a hybrid uniform. Half tech, half traditional. She wore a scar across her face, and a smile too calm for someone carrying a plasma rifle. "Logan Reyes," she called out. "You've walked very far." Logan stood in front of Nova. "Who are you?" The woman laughed. "Once, I hunted Valari. Now I collect them." Nova peeked out from behind Logan. The woman's smile grew. "Ah, there she is, the last light." Logan raised his rifle. "Put that down, soldier. You won't win." "I'm not here to win," he said. "I'm here to protect her." The woman motioned to her Team 5 masked soldiers. "Step forward." Then something happened. The sleeping bag began to hum. The crystal inside it expanded rapidly. The air around Nova bent and shimmered like heat waves. She stepped forward, no longer hiding. She placed her hand over the crystal, and suddenly, it spoke. Not in words, but in light. A shockwave burst from the fabric, throwing snow and dust into the air. The masked soldiers stumbled back. The woman covered her eyes. The crystal floated upward, and the sleeping bag unraveled mid-air, turning into a glowing ribbon that wrapped around Nova like armor, lightweight, flowing, alive. Logan stared. The gift he gave her to survive the night had become something more. A Valari memory cloth. A living relic. A shield. Nova stood taller now, not just as a child, but as something ancient reborn. The woman looked shocked for the first time. "You activated it?" Nova said nothing. The ribbon around her pulsed, and the ground beneath her glowed. Then she raised her hand and the soldiers' weapons froze in place. Literally. Ice formed instantly across their arms, locking their rifles. Some screamed. Others dropped to their knees. The woman raised her gun, but Logan fired first. She fell back, hit in the shoulder, then vanished into her ship, which rose quickly and disappeared into the clouds. The fight was over. For now. As silence returned, Nova lowered her hand and walked back to Logan. He stared at her. "You are full of surprises." Nova smiled faintly and touched the place where the sleeping bag had once been. Now it was her second skin. "A soldier gave me warmth," she said quietly. "So I became warmth." Logan swallowed hard. "You remember everything, don't you?" She nodded. "And I choose you." Those 4 words made his heart ache in a way he couldn't explain. She wasn't just the child he saved. She was becoming the hope of something much, much bigger. The world was watching, from orbiting satellites to ground-level scouts. Every major power now had their eyes on the girl, wrapped in living memory cloth, standing atop the ancient cliffs of Kiro 7. No one could deny it anymore. The Valari weren't extinct. They had simply been sleeping inside her. And now, the last light had awakened. Logan Reyes stood beside Nova as her ribbon armor shimmered gently in the thin air. Around them, the wind no longer howled. It moved like a soft whisper, almost respectful. Nova looked at the horizon, the same battlefield where her people had fallen long ago. But today, it wasn't filled with smoke or wreckage. Today, it was quiet. "I don't feel cold anymore," she said softly, her glowing eyes blinking slowly. "You burned it all away," Logan replied with a small smile. "Even the fear." But deep inside, Logan knew this was not the end, because the enemy wasn't just hiding in dropships anymore. It was coming, in the form of diplomacy. 3 days later, Nova and Logan were summoned to a neutral meeting dome constructed overnight by the United Human Alliance. It was temporary, made of glass panels and climate seals, placed directly in the middle of the cold expanse. Outside, ice still ruled. Inside, war councils waited. Logan wore his old uniform. Nova stood beside him in her armor of light, her glowing ribbon moving like slow smoke. Every general, scientist, and alien ambassador in the room turned when she entered. Some stared in fear. Others, with hunger. One human commander stood and cleared his throat. "Private Reyes, you have defied direct orders, deserted your post, and disobeyed standard alien policy." Logan said nothing. "However," the commander continued, "you have also discovered the last living Valari, protected her from assassination, and revealed dormant ancient tech, all while keeping the child alive." He looked at Nova now. "We don't understand what you are. We don't know what you can become. But if there is to be peace, we must begin here." Nova stepped forward. Her armor shifted. From within it, the old sleeping bag cloth reshaped into a long mantle like a cape of warmth. And then, in a clear voice, she said, "My people believed in light, in warmth, in sharing knowledge. You burned us because you feared what we could give." Gasps filled the room. Logan blinked. He hadn't heard her speak that clearly until now. "But one soldier," Nova continued, "gave me warmth without asking for anything, and from his gift, I remembered who I was." She raised her hand, and the dome glowed with Valari light. Holograms bloomed in midair showing lost technology. Healing devices, floating cities, clean energy systems, forgotten alliances. Nova looked at all of them. "I do not bring weapons," she said. "I bring a second chance." One alien ambassador, a green-skinned being from the Serac Empire, rose to speak. "If you join the humans, we cannot guarantee peace. Many will see your existence as a threat." Logan stepped beside her. "Then let them come. They'll find out she's not alone." Another human officer whispered to a general, "We can weaponize her. Make her a defense system." Nova turned, her eyes suddenly hard. "I will not be a weapon. I will not be owned. But I will protect those who choose peace." She walked toward Logan and held his hand. "This soldier gave me a sleeping bag," she said, "and inside it, I found family." Logan squeezed her hand tightly. Later that night, as the stars returned over the cold expanse, Nova stood alone outside the dome. Logan joined her, silent for a while. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I feel full, like a sun inside me. Not burning, just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Nova looked up at him. "For others to do the same." "Do what?" She smiled. "Offer their sleeping bag." Logan laughed softly. "That's one way to say it." Then she asked, "Will I ever be just a child again?" He thought about it. "No," he said gently, "but maybe you'll be something even better." They sat in the snow, side by side, and watched the sky change colors. In the distance, nations that once planned war now sent messages of peace. And somewhere inside Nova's new armor, the worn cloth of a human soldier's gift still held the warmth of that cold night, proof that even in war, one act of kindness can melt centuries of ice. The end.